Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tatiana Show. It is May 1st, 2018, and I'm broadcasting to you live from my apartment. It's so exciting here, I assure you. It is actually quite exciting because the weather is a little bit better today. And joining me today is my co-host and my BFF of Josh. What's going on, Josh? How you doing?
Oh, it's fantastic. It's May Day. May Day.
What does that mean? I knew it was like a day, but I don't have a good grasp of history. Can you
I think it's French. First of all, it's French for like help me or something like that. So they use it in the First World War or something like that for boating. And it's still used. It's still used in boating. Yeah, and it's Labor Day, I think, pretty much, which means it's a celebration of all the people, all the workers out there, so they have a day off. I think that's what it is, right?
Sounds pretty
yeah, I think it happened actually in Australia first. So the Australians decided that 8 hours work, 8 hours play, and 8 hours sleep is kind of the good mix.
I'm glad they worked that out for us. What would we?
Yeah. And then actually Hitler out of Germany decided that was a really good thing as well, and incorporated it here in Germany. And then
that's lovely, great,
so,
really great
start. No one remembers him for that, but and then the workers' rights went all through the world, and now we celebrate the fact that people should have some time with their families as well, which is great.
Well, I like that last part, but anyway, the whole thing just seems like a way to get people to like be happy about working and giving away a big chunk of their money to the state. But sure, we could go with the other part, which gives them time for their families.
I know. It is ridiculous.
So I just got back from distributed markets out in Chicago, and then I was in Toronto. So I wanted to, we're going to bring on our guest, Max Sanchez from Vera Block in just a little bit, but I wanted to kind of talk about all the cool times that just happened. What
happened?
Stories to tell.
Lay it on down.
All right. So I went to Toronto. I was on this thing called Vintage TV. It's like a UK MTV thing. And then we talked about cryptocurrency. So that was really cool. Then I
Is there a link for that?
I'm sorry?
Are there links for that?
No, not yet. It's not out until September, but it still seemed really cool. And apparently the channel that they're putting it out on has 10 million people. So that was exciting. Then there was...
How can you record something about crypto and then put it on air in September? Like the whole world would have changed by then.
Yeah, the price is going to be going down. So, we'll see. Sorry, I saw that Michael just joined us. I didn't mean to poo-poo the price. Anywho, so I was in Toronto. Then I went to Sunny Ray's event, and Sunny is, first of all, he got really, really good speakers, I thought. And so I saw Connie Galippi from BitGive, Elena Vranova, Trezor Labs, and now she has her own foundation, Kodam and Bloom, I think it's called. Seems really cool. Yeah. Quaintly. We'll talk to her soon. Hartej from Ho Show, and then I made some new friends and hung out with a bunch of different people. So it was really cool. And I don't know, it was fabulous. But then I guess Toronto had some big terrible thing happen as soon as I left. So that was kind of weird. And then in Chicago, I went to the Distributed Markets Conference, and that's put on by BTC Media. So it was like David Bailey and his crew, and Christy over at Bitcoin Magazine, and just I feel like those were my peeps. I saw Tyler and all those folks. We did some LTV podcasts. So I got to be on the official LTV, which I don't think I was ever on the actual LTV. I got interviewed by Stephanie and maybe but I didn't get to go on. And so I was one of the co-hosts. I didn't have much to contribute, but it was still cool to be on. And I got to say a few things. So officially.
One of the OG podcasts in the crypto space.
Yeah, I forgot how much it really influenced me, when I kind of think back to the different things that added up to my vague understanding of crypto, which I've been cultivating for years now. LTV is definitely one of the main ones. So, and then it culminated with the Andreas Internet of Money 5 years later, LTV 5 years later. It was like an anniversary show. And it was done as a variety show. So I'm sure we'll have Andreas or Pamela Morgan. She also helped organize it. But basically Pamela was the MC. Then I went up, I played 2 songs. It was really cool. We rocked out. Then Oh yeah, MK came up and she talked about how everybody should feel safe and that it was like a warm, welcoming environment and no one was allowed to harass anyone, which, you know, I actually talked to her about it because I thought it was like a little bit over the top, but it was really not over the top at all. And it's basically just be decent, don't be a jerk. And I was into it. So it was nice to see her. And then Andreas did a big talk and he reminded
Andreas Antonopoulos.
yeah,
well,
the Andreas. So many
the Andreas. I mean, yeah.
So anyway, so he gave a talk and he was saying about how there's this flood of people coming in and how important community is. And I thought that that was a really nice theme. Then they had an intermission and then an episode of LTV. But what was really neat was all the proceeds beyond like the expenses, the hard expenses of the event. And remember, we filled a theater of over 700 people. All the proceeds from that go to the BOB meetup group, which is their decentralized open blockchain group that they have based in Chicago. So they got a whole ton of money instead of being one of these shill conferences where you have to pay $3,000 in order to get in. And then you have to like, you know, do God knows what in what back room in order to get ahead. I thought this was so cool. And I was honored to be a part of it. And it was really rad.
Awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah. So I wanted to say that, you know, it's hard to go out on the road because I get cranky and I'm around people and I don't want to, I don't know. I sometimes I just don't want to be around people anymore, but it was so cool. And I had a really good time. So hopefully you'll get to, maybe we'll do an Andreas event in Berlin and I can come and visit over the summer.
Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who we've got on the show today?
Well, you know what? We have two guests. We have Michael Vogel, and he is from Netcoins. And then we've got Max Sanchez from Veriblock. So I think we're going to go with Michael first. That's how we decided. I'm glad that he was able to meet us. I'm going to unmute him. I don't know how to do that. Michael, you need to unmute yourself. And Michael's. What's up, buddy? We could hear you now, I think. No, we can't. I don't know why.
Test.
Well, I don't know why we're not hearing you.
Well, it's...
There we go.
I could go in. Oh, there he is. Hey, Michael.
Figured it out. Sorry, my apologies. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, yeah, we're happy to have you on. Cool. So we were talking a little bit before the show and we were looking through the stuff that you've done and it seems like such a useful service. But before we get into like what Netcoins is, maybe give me a little bit of background about, I always like to hear everybody's story about how they came into crypto, how long they've been involved, you know, what kind of gave you the idea to how you decided to contribute to the space?
Yeah, so going back, I mean, I got into Bitcoin in 2014, which is, you know, by many accounts late to the game, but I think I first got into it after the Mt. Gox meltdown, and you know, Bitcoin hit the media, and everyone was, you know, talking about how Bitcoin was dead and it was over. But you know, like many of us, you know, went down the rabbit hole and started reading about Bitcoin and getting into it, and realizing that you know, the Mt. Gox hack was really just part of the growing pains of Bitcoin, and yeah, just.
But the CEO of Bitcoin took all the coins, man. The CEO of Bitcoin.
Yeah, is the verdict out yet on where those coins all went? I guess we'll never know.
Time out before we go too far. Speaking of that, I heard that he's going to make all the money off of the appreciation. That they locked everybody in when they did their deal, and now he's just going to make like the big bulk of it. That can't possibly.
Well, he did an AMA on Reddit, and he actually said he doesn't want the money. He doesn't. He won't, because the thing is, by law, they're going to pay back everyone at the price of $200 a Bitcoin or something, and then he gets the rest, which will be far more. Like it'll be like $1 billion. And he said, look, I don't want that because I don't want to be looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. And also, he just wants to, you know, start with a clean slate. So, and you know, I tend to believe him. I lost a lot of money in Mt. Gox, and so I would like to see Mark also have a clean slate and we all return well. But he's trying to figure out a way to get the money that he would then have and repatriate that to the creditors of Mt. Gox.
I've got a question for him. Why did that uncorrupt agent in the Silk Road think that he was DPR? Because that's what they testified in court, and I'm very curious about that specifically. But yeah, I mean, both. I mean,
the thing was, there was a lot of people moving money through Mt. Gox at that stage. Pretty much every Bitcoin that was getting moved was going through Mt. Gox at the time. So there would have been a lot of connections to Silk Road.
Well, that wasn't the contention that the guy on the stand said, though. We have to talk with Lynn about that one day, because it was a big bomb dropped, and then the opposite, the prosecution went crazy. They're like, "No, stop! Don't talk to the witness!" And they like freaked out, and then they had to strike it from the record. I always thought that was unusual that they had to strike, because the guy testifying was like, "Yeah, we never heard of Ross Ulbricht. We were investigating Mark Karpeles, and we thought that he was it." And then he told the corrupt agents that they shouldn't bring him in, and the corrupt agents did it anyway. So some people think there was like a side deal there. I'm just saying, like, I'm glad that he's going around saying that he doesn't want to be this, that, or other thing, but there are other issues at hand that I think people shouldn't forget are, on the record.
We should get him on the show.
I don't know.
Anyway, back to you, Michael. Back to you. So you.
All right, Michael got in. He was like, "Oh, look at Mt. Gox. This is a big hot mess. I love Bitcoin. Now what happens?"
It's funny. I look back on the graph. It's like I got into Bitcoin probably like the worst time. Like Bitcoin crashed to almost nothing. But I'm obviously looking back then, it was obviously a great time to get in. But it's funny. I talk to people all the time. Even this year, people saying, "Oh, Bitcoin's over," and this and that. But it's part of a trend that we've seen for years and years and years. And so there's nothing new. And so that's why I think Bitcoin is still really, really exciting. And I just basically got into it as many other crypto nerds got into it back in the day, and still in the game today.
Cool.
I heard someone say the other day, I said, "Oh, you should accept Bitcoin at some shop," and he goes, "Oh man, it's too late now. Like I could have bought them at $3,000, but now it's like, hey, there's no way. It's way too expensive." And people have been saying the same thing forever. "Oh no, it's $30 now. Oh no, it's $300 now. It's way too. Oh no, it's at $1,000 now. It's way too late." I know. And when he said 3,000, I thought, man, are they ever going to stop using that excuse?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, none of my friends will ever buy. I spend a lot of time trying to convince my mom. My dad bought some Zen Cash, and he's been pretty happy with that. And even when it crashed, I got to give him credit. He wasn't annoying at all. He wasn't like calling me, complaining, or anything stupid. He just like held on and was cool. I was like, "That's right, Dad. Way to go." All right. So what's going on with Netcoins? Because you guys have been doing this for a while, and it's a very, I don't know, like you have over 7,000 retailers that are selling Bitcoin as Bitcoin ATMs without having the physical machines, right?
Yeah, the nexus of the idea was basically Bitcoin ATMs are really, really cool, and they're a great way. It's most people's first exposure to Bitcoin. But it would be great to have 10 times or 100 times the amount of machines that we have around the world. But obviously that can't happen because the machines themselves cost $10,000 for a decent ATM, right? And so the idea we had was, well, let's create a virtual ATM that stores and individuals, peer to peer, anyone can use to sell Bitcoin, but without the physical machine. So it's a really basic idea, but it solves a very important problem of, if people want to be able to buy and sell Bitcoin, well, they have to be able to do it somewhere. And online has its own set of challenges, most of it driven by banks and credit cards and payment gateways. And so if we basically bring this model into the real world, then we can solve a lot of those problems. So our launching ground is in Canada, and we're based in Vancouver, Canada. And so we're up and launched in Canada, but we have some pilots going on in Australia and soon in Europe. And eventually we'll come down south to the States, hopefully this year. But we're just figuring out some regulatory issues before we do that.
Yeah, well, you have to be sort of careful. So how does it work? All right, I've got a bodega and I want to sell some Bitcoins. What do I do?
Yeah, so a store or an individual can sign up with the application, and basically instead of a typical crypto user maybe on local Bitcoins where they would buy a bunch of Bitcoin and then sell it as they go off their phone, Netcoins basically looks after all the Bitcoin inventory and invoicing and back-end systems. So basically the store owner only has to worry about collecting dollars from their customer. So an example of a customer flow would be you walk into a shop, hey, I want to buy $500 of Bitcoin. The cashier rings up our application on their point of sale terminal. It brings up a real-time quote of how much Bitcoin they're going to get. And built into that exchange rate is obviously a little bit of a commission for the store. And so they're able to make money selling Bitcoin just like they could selling a pack of gum. And And so
how much of a percentage do they get? Are you able to tell us?
Yeah, for sure. So it, we're experimenting with the model still, but on average, it's around 2.5%. That's what the store will typically charge, and that's pretty average when you compare it to other prepaid kind of products that stores sell, like cell phone prepaid cards and that kind of thing. So it's a pretty reasonable markup as well. And then Netcoins takes something similar depending on the amount that they're selling as well.
Well, because usually the ones, the physical ATMs in the store, I mean, there's at least you're paying at least 10% over, I think. So that's not that great if you want to buy a lot of Bitcoin.
Yeah, and the thing that we noticed as well with the physical machines is, they can only take cash. So if you want to buy half a Bitcoin, you literally have to stand there and feed in $20 bills into the machine, and half the time they get jammed and all that. So here's a pretty convenient way where, sure, you can still pay with cash, and it's a lot faster, typically if the cashier can count it, or just use your debit card or any other kind of payment that the store accepts. So it's faster that way.
That's cool that you can just with a credit card too.
How do they deal with reverse chargebacks and stuff?
Yeah, so predominantly it's cash or debit that the stores are taking. We have another interesting class of users that have emerged, and it's basically customers and brokers in the financial space. So a lot of our users are financial advisors, and they all have clients that come to them and say, hey, I'd love to be able to buy Bitcoin, and they have no idea or no capacity how to offer that, right? They're not going to sign up on Coinbase and place a trade and send the coins. It's just beyond any kind of reasonable use case for them. So they could use the Netcoins app and run it on their desk at their office, and they can take payment from their client's existing account or however they have that already set up. So essentially the merchant or reseller can use whatever payment methods they have available to them. So if they're having online transfers or e-transfers, we call them in Canada, or if they have their own credit card gateway, they can basically use whatever they're normally using. And so
right on.
Yeah.
So what about KYC? How does Tatiana.
No, we read each other's minds. We're in sync.
Yeah, KYC is obviously the biggest part of this type of business. Software is one part of it, but the payment infrastructure and the compliance are the two biggest things, and that's basically why we first launched in Canada, because for the most part, Canada is very Bitcoin friendly, I'd say. That may change in the future, but it's fairly open season, and so our software does have the ability to set in prompts depending on the location. So if someone wants to buy over $3,000, then the cashier is prompted to collect ID, etc. But it's very adaptable to local markets in that sense.
Right on. So
if I want to wash $2,500, that's the limit there. No, what if you want to buy $500 worth? You don't have to show your ID or anything?
It depends on the location. So in Canada, and obviously don't necessarily quote me on this.
I'm just saying that seems like.
So at the moment in Canada, the legislation from the governing body, it's called FinTrack. I know in the States it's called FinCEN, but FinTrack in Canada, they basically say as long as you're not facilitating a currency exchange, then it's not considered under their purview. So a currency exchange would be if a customer could go to a store and buy in Canadian dollars, and then go to another store and cash out and say, hey, I want to cash it into US. In that sense, we're facilitating a currency exchange. But if we're just doing dollars to Bitcoin and Bitcoin to dollars, Canadian dollars, then there's no currency exchange that's taking place, because in their own words, they don't consider Bitcoin a currency.
Right on, it's a commodity.
The US was less annoying. There'd be so much more innovation here. It's just so frustrating as time goes on in this space, just how I get why they want regulation. I don't necessarily support it, but I get why they would want it. But it's just so ineffective, and it drives all the business away. But that's neat that you guys are going international. What do you have planned for the rest of the year? Do you have some sort of a timeline? What's the goal? Have you been speaking a lot?
Yeah, so the cool thing that we have with the software is obviously Bitcoin is international, and so we like the idea of taking this tool and giving it to maybe ATM providers that maybe have a few locations in any given city, and they would love to have 50 or 100 locations, but can't just because of the whole logistics of it, right? And so the Netcoins application is basically a tool for them to use to resell Bitcoin. I think it's something that we find interesting, and one of our first pilots is a group in the UK. I think they have one ATM or two ATMs right now, and so they'd love to have a whole bunch around London, and so they're going to try this out as a pilot, and so we'll see how that goes.
Cool.
Do you have a
Go ahead, Josh. No, go ahead.
No, you go. You jumped in before me.
No, I was going to
So many
I wanted to see what he thought about Canada's crypto community. So if you want to ask something about this, then we can move to my question.
All right. I was just going to ask about software like platforms. Let's say I run a website that accepts Bitcoin, but I don't, and I want people to be able to buy Bitcoin before they spend it on my site. Can people use your service for that?
Yeah, so the software runs as a web application. So our slogan is turn any device into a Bitcoin ATM. And so we do have some users that some of them have like Facebook groups and whatnot. So they'll advertise, hey, I can sell Bitcoin to you. And they're using the Netcoin software behind the scenes to facilitate that order. It's not necessarily a checkout where the end customer would go and interact with the ATM. They still have to interact with the reseller. But we do have users that do that where they accept Bitcoin for their services, and we can also sell you Bitcoin ahead of time as well.
Cool.
Yeah, right. Be cool. Yeah, be cool to have a API so that people can embed it on their websites and stuff.
Yes, that's a very good point, actually.
So, what are some of the teams in Canada that you like? I thought that there was a lot of action happening there. It was really like Toronto was a hot city. There was really an international presence, which I thought was really neat. Can you tell me anything about the culture there, or like some of the teams that you're liking? Because, I know that you're on the Canadian Stock Exchange yourself. Like, are there any kind of cool companies that people that maybe aren't from Canada should be paying attention to?
Yeah, so the cool thing about Canada is because of that open season in terms of regulation, I think there's a lot of innovation opportunity. And so there are a lot of interesting crypto projects. If you go to the Bitcoin meetups, there's a lot of people working on smart contract, Ethereum projects, and a lot of interesting feature development, I think, that will come out of that scene. But I think in terms of actual Bitcoin companies, probably the reason we don't see that many Bitcoin companies in general is I think even though regulation is good, banks are often not very friendly to Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. And so we're the only publicly traded Bitcoin exchange or ATM company listed right now. And I think part of the reason is not necessarily because it's hard to create anything in the Bitcoin space, but it's hard to just get a basic bank account for your Bitcoin company. I think that exists in the States too, but so I mean, we've had some long time exchanges in Canada, Quadriga, CoinSquare. Those are interesting companies as well. They're sort of like the coin-based alternative up north here, and those are obviously long-term companies here that a lot of people follow as well. But I think for the most part, the Bitcoin space is definitely very fragmented. Like there's local projects, but not necessarily many national companies. But I think that'll change. I think there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of growth happening in the country.
Cool. Very good. So are you coming down to New York for Consensus? Are you going to be here?
Yeah, we're hoping to. Our schedules are very tight this year, but we're going to try and come out east and at least make a few road stops. And so that's one that we're looking forward to, hopefully.
Okay. Well, I hope I get to see you here. Any final words, Josh, before we let Michael go off on his merry way? Michael, any plugs you want to do? It's your chance.
Very cool project. I love it. Yeah, I want to see it all over Europe. That's where I want to see it.
Yeah, no, I think Europe is an absolutely perfect location for us. And so London is going to be the first stop with this partnership. But yeah, anyone watching out there that maybe owns a Bitcoin ATM or wants to get into the Bitcoin ATM business but doesn't want to buy a machine, this is a great solution for you. And so we love to partner with like-minded people. And so yeah, our website's gonetcoins.com, so go and then netcoins.com, and all the cool info is on there.
Good. We should get room 77 in on that tip, Josh. When I come out to Berlin, that's what we'll do. We'll go and talk to them over there. All right. Right on. Thanks, Michael. We'll talk to you soon. Thanks for joining us today. So we're going to bring up our next guest. But before we do, if you have a product or service that fits with our show, you can reach out to us for sponsorship opportunities at dave@btcmedia.org because we have really nice sponsors and only the best people choose to sponsor Tatiana's show. Josh, who are our sponsors and why are they so wonderful to us? I always say the Bitcoin CPA because Kirk is the one who is making my life better. As much trash talk as I do about the state being a pain in my butt, I do believe in paying my taxes, even though they are theft, because I would like to stay out of jail. And I recommend that you all follow suit and pay your stuff. Make sure you're following the right regulations. And Kirk and the Bitcoin CPA, they can sort of bring a lot of organization into your business, not only with filing your taxes, but he sort of overhauled my whole business process. So it's all automated, which really works for me since I'm on the go all the time. Yeah, and Kirk is also a super cool guy and like a real legit Bitcoin OG. So yeah, I like Kirk. And Crypto Compare, Josh, you want to take it away since you guys have your little integration jabby job going? Oh, great. So Josh is frozen. I guess I'll have to tell you about Crypto Compare. Josh, you're gonna have to reconnect, I think, bud. So anyway, Crypto Compare has been a big supporter of the Tatiana Show for a long time. Oh, Josh, there you are. Why are you silent?
No, my website is my web connection. Sorry, it's jumping in and out. I'm sorry about that, folks. Yeah.
Okay. Well, anyway, I was telling them about Crypto Compare, and you guys have the integration. You want to take this one?
Oh yeah, Crypto Compare is fantastic. Great way to compare all your crypto holdings. You know.
Oh, well then, that worked really well. I guess we're losing Josh again. So anyway. God. All right, Josh.
I'm back.
All right. Well, that was a terrible example of what a sponsorship on the Tatiana Show looks like.
I'm sorry, Crypto Compare. Oh, I'm sorry. No, they're very, very cool. It's definitely a cool way to make sure that you're up to date with how much your crypto is worth. But
wait,
you know, a lot of it's
from like a coin market cap, right? How like, because I gotta say, coin market cap, I go there pretty easily. How is Crypto Compare different for people that maybe are used to something different?
Yeah, so Crypto Compare, you can put all your crypto holdings in. So let's say you got you know, a Bitcoin, you've got some Dash, you've got some Litecoin, you've got some different coins, and then you can see exactly how much you've got. But then also you can compare all the different tokens, but you can also see nice graphs of price discovery and see what's going.
Well, they put the Twitter feed. And the daily reports, so there's that.
They really have great educational content as well. And if you really don't want to, if you don't care like me how much your crypto is worth in fiat, you can check it against gold because they use the Vaultoro.com gold feed, which is great. So you can see exactly how much your crypto is worth in physical bullion.
Okay, I like that. All of this is good. I'm glad that your internet is caught up because this is going to be a pretty awesome guest. I know Max. Where did I meet Max? I think in Toronto. We spent quite a fair amount of time together. And at first I was like, who is this guy? He looks like very, very youthful, a little younger than you would normally have. But I guess he's a bit of a wonder kid. I don't know if he thinks that's annoying. I would probably find that mildly annoying and get slightly flattering. But no, he's into crypto since 2011. He was building remote miner management software, OpenCL, CUDA, GPU miners. I don't know what that means. Okay, let's let him tell us about it. He's a very well-spoken young gentleman, and he's one of the co-founders of Veriblock, which is a blockchain that is doing this proof of proof thing, and he's going to tell us all about it. It was all the rage in Toronto. Hey, Max, how's it going? Nice to see you again.
Tatiana. Nice to be on the show.
Cool. So I'm happy that you are with us today. We did do a little brief interview, like a little 5-minute snippety snip at Distributed Markets, but now we're going to get a chance to delve in. And I'm happy that Josh is here because I'm still forcing myself to learn technological stuff, and Josh is already way ahead of the game. So he can really put you to the test. The proof.
Pressure's on. Pressure's on.
Okay, cool. So Max, maybe before we kind of get into your project, maybe you could give us a little bit of background of how you got involved in crypto and stuff.
Sure. So I originally got involved in, by the way, sorry about the background noise. They're doing a bunch of yard work, so I'll try to mute my mic when I'm not talking. But yeah, so I originally got into crypto in 2011, late 2011. Early 2012, I started really getting involved with the community and writing software for it. I started writing, like you mentioned, remote miner management software.
Wait, I have a question. Were you libertarian? Like into Ron Paul, or are you just like this stuff? I'm curious.
I was just a high schooler who thought
computers are neat.
I really liked the technology. I got into the technology more than the political side of it first. Like the technology was just really, really fascinating, and then I started buying into the whole idea of what it really means to have a really like the anti-censorship properties of it. I found the most interesting, and then I got more into economics in high school, and then when I graduated from high school, I started really diving into what crypto meant economically. But yeah, in 2011, 2012, I started getting involved. I wrote some miner management software. I wrote some miner software a little bit later in OpenCL and CUDA for GP mining for like Litecoin. I got involved in a lot of projects early on, just doing sort of ancillary work, things that helped out the community, real simple stuff. And then in 2014, I started a project called CureCoin with a few other people. And CureCoin was and still is a blockchain platform that rewards people for doing protein folding and biomedical research for Stanford University. And so that was a good way to get my feet wet with actually running a blockchain and the day-to-day operations of that. And then in 2015, when I was at a conference, I was at TNABC in Miami for the CureCoin project. We had a booth there that Mo Levin gave us. And that's where I met Justin Fisher, who's my co-founder and CEO of Veriblock. And that was a little over 3 years ago. And ever since, we've been working on Veriblock and the Veriblock blockchain and proof of proof. So that's sort of my entrance into space and history.
Yeah, awesome. Protein folding. I remember years ago, like even back, I don't know, like 2012, people were talking about, oh, you know, we're wasting so much power just hashing shit, just hashing, you know, trying to find zeros in the front of a hash. And people were saying, well, why can't we do something like protein folding? And it was a very hard thing to solve because you
Wait, what's protein folding? Because I vaguely understand, but that's only after people explain to me. And I bet you there's other people that don't know what that means. Can you explain how that would work, really?
Sure. So quickly to Joshua's point, one of the things that like a lot of people get into crypto when they see mining and they think it's very energy inefficient. It looks wasteful at first because you have all this computing power and you're crunching numbers and you're doing math and all you're doing is really generating these hashes. You're, like you said, finding zeros at the beginning of a hash. And that is why I started CureCoin, why I got involved in the project early on. Delving more into what proof of work is, I realized that it's really not wasteful. It does consume a lot of electricity, but it produces something that the world has never before had. It's the world's first and to date most powerful decentralized engine of proof. And it's worth spending a lot of electricity to create something like that. And actually, when you have external value to a proof of work algorithm, something like CureCoin, you do end up with a little bit of a economic problem because there's external incentive for the mining beyond simply securing the network. And so you're losing this baseline incentive. You're giving value to something else, and it tends to dilute the actual security that you can offer the network. So for CureCoin, for example, the protein folding isn't actually for the proof of work itself. That was originally the idea that we wanted to pursue, and it ended up, for a variety of reasons, not really working too well. So what we instead did was a mixed hybrid proof of work, proof of stake system, where the native coin of the network is created to pay actual people who do the security part of the network, and then reward people for protein folding through our admittedly centralized folding at home pool. So but protein folding, to explain it simply, is doing a bunch of simulations on basically molecules and seeing how they react to different environments and changes in all kinds of different properties of their environment, and learning how proteins misfold, and when they misfold, they cause a lot of diseases like AIDS, Alzheimer's, Huntington's disease, all kinds of things. And so being able to simulate these proteins and seeing why they misfold, how they misfold, and what happens when they do misfold, we're able to get a lot of insights into designing the next generation of drugs and other types of treatment.
How can you accurately simulate them, though? I mean, they're little whatevers in some sort of a physical sense, right? How do you make sure that they're alive, right? So they're going to act differently every time. How do you account for that?
That is one of the challenges of protein folding, and I'm not terribly involved in the actual sciencey part of it that Stanford University does, but we have very, very good ideas of how a lot of different molecule. It really comes down to a computational problem where we know all the properties of all these atoms and molecules. We know how they interact with each other and what's how they're going to behave, but we have to simulate it in very, very short segments of time to get a realistic expectation of exactly what they are going to do and how they're going to behave. So we have all the physics worked out. It's just a lot of math that needs to be done. So I don't want to talk too much about protein folding because
I think it's super cool. All right, no. So now, what is proof of proof? Get to the potatoes, because that inspired the rest of your work. I've had the appetizer.
And so what we're doing at Veriblock is basically we've invented, my co-founder Justin Fisher and I, we co-founded Veriblock in 2015, and we created a new consensus protocol called Proof of Proof. And what Proof of Proof does is it allows, in an entirely decentralized, trustless, transparent, permissionless manner, for any blockchain in the world to inherit the full proof of work security of Bitcoin to secure its own network, no matter how it's structured, what it does, whether it's itself proof of work or proof of stake or delegated proof of stake or proof of capacity or whatever their consensus protocol is, they can inherit the full security of Bitcoin. And so one of the reasons that I really got excited about the space in the early days, like I mentioned, was anti-censorship. And I thought, being able to create platforms, whether it be monetary in nature or based just on people's ability to communicate or whatever it may be, I really like the idea of anti-censorship and being able to, for everyone to be able to have a voice and for everyone to be able to interact in a free manner. And so that ethos is one of the things that drove Veriblock and Proof of Proof in the early days, because we believe that anyone should be able to create a blockchain and try out their idea, and we want to reduce the barriers. So sort of like the internet, where as people made it easier to host websites and create websites and produce content, Doorbell, I'll get that later, we started working towards opening those doors to blockchains as well, being able to allow anyone to try out their idea and anyone to be able to, whether they want to try a new consensus protocol or whether they want to try some different combination of ways that, features for network or create a Turing complete scripting language on a blockchain or whatever they want to do. We wanted all those ideas we wanted to reduce the friction for people to be able to get in, build a solid blockchain platform, and then sink or swim based on the merits of their platform, rather than being stuck up trying to get security or any of the other sort of adoption hurdles.
Yeah, for those that don't know, that the thing is that a lot of these blockchains, when you start one, a lot of them can get 51% attacked, or you really don't have much security at the start. And so to be able to latch on to something like Bitcoin, which is infinitely unhackable, like it's so ridiculously powerful, people don't quite understand the power of this network now. It's silly. I think someone calculated it recently that said if all of Google, this is a weird calculation because it's kind of, they're not ASICs, but if Google turned on every single part of their computing power and pointed it at the Bitcoin network, it wouldn't even add 1% hashing power nowadays. So the amount of computing power securing the network is really good. So to be able to piggyback on that is great. I mean, how do you go about doing that? Because there's merge mining, things like, Litecoin, Dogecoin, merge mine, they're kind of piggybacking off each other's, but also Namecoin merge mine into Bitcoin to sort of do the same thing, right, back in the day. This is slightly different, right? Are you hashing something into the blockchain every 10 minutes or?
That's a good question. So you mentioned merge mining. Merge mining has a variety of issues. One of them is you need to get the miners of Bitcoin to actually elect to merge mine your blockchain. So you need to be able to, like, for example, Namecoin, you need to go to all the Bitcoin miners. You need to convince them to, I'm sorry, I'll be right back.
You go, man. Me and Tatiana will go on a little bit about our great sponsors.
All right, I'll be right back. Sorry.
The door.
So listen to what's happening in the background. Can you hear it?
No.
Oh my gosh, there's a full-on racket going on. Look, this is a disturbed show. This is what happens when you do things live. Okay, see, they stop.
So that's all right. So who else? We've got Free Ross, of course, as a sponsor. Folks, if you don't know what Free Ross is all about, it's about Ross Ulbricht, who was a software engineer and
time out. I don't think that he was a software engineer. I don't think he knows how to do that. Lynn's going to come here and she's going to give you like the Dread Mother Roberts spanking for getting the facts wrong.
All right.
I like that. Did you ever hear that before? Dread Mother Roberts?
The Dread Mother Roberts. No. I love it. I love it.
She's been, just before we bring Max on, because I'm glad that he's back, but real quick, Lynn will be back co-hosting one of the shows in like the upcoming weeks, so we'll have her back on. She'll give us an update on the Supreme Court. Max, looks like you're back. Your invaders have left you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay.
So merge mining, talking about merge mining and other ways to inherit the hashing power or other sort of security of a blockchain network. One of the issues with merge mining is you do have to go and get all the miners, or a majority of the miners of Bitcoin, to come and merge mine your coin. It's an interactive thing. And so what it really ends up being is it's like an artificial increase to the block size of Bitcoin, right? Say you have 10 or 20 or 30 blockchains that all merge mine, and they each have a 2 megabyte block, then all of a sudden, Bitcoin miners aren't trying to propagate 1 megabyte of data. The competitive ones have to propagate 60 megabytes of data, right? And so it doesn't really scale. And there's also an incentive incompatibility problem because people who are mining Bitcoin can choose to attack a merge mine chain while still mining Bitcoin. So the really only cost to attack is the reward of the merge mine network. And so, if you're, say, Namecoin and you reward Bitcoin miners with, I don't know, $100 a block, and Bitcoin right now is rewarding way more than that, they're risking a fraction of a percent of their profits to go and attack your network. So it's really not that secure. Right. So one of the things that, when Veriblock started, we were working on a project called Blockchain of Custody. And the early idea for Blockchain of Custody was timestamping digital data to the blockchain. We were focused primarily on law enforcement, 9/11 services, insurance agencies, et cetera. But you take digital data, you take a fingerprint of it, and you put it on Bitcoin. And that digital data now inherits the full security of Bitcoin because someone would have to attack the Bitcoin network itself to rewrite that data. And so we said, well, could we do that with a blockchain? Because a blockchain really is just digital data. And so that's where the idea for proof of proof came from, where we started working on, okay, so people can timestamp a blockchain, great. But how do you do that in a decentralized, transparent, trustless, and permissionless way? How do you allow anyone in the world to secure a blockchain to Bitcoin? And how do you do that without introducing any sort of centralization or third-party trust? And so the way proof of proof works, quite simply, is people do these security transactions on behalf of a blockchain. So say you launch Tatiana coin, right? And you secure it, let's say straight to Bitcoin, just for a simple example, using proof of proof. Your miners, you would take your block award, say you're a proof of work network, right? And you have a block award of, say, 100 coins a block. You would take a portion of that, maybe 20%, and you'd say, hey, now the proof of work miners are going to get 80 coins. We'll take these other 20 coins and we will give them to proof of proof miners. It's this new form of mining we invented. And these proof of proof miners are going to take a fingerprint of your blockchain. They're going to publish that to Bitcoin. They're going to wait 10 minutes until it gets into a Bitcoin block. They're going to construct a mathematical proof that they did so, a la a Merkle path up to the block header and any additional block headers for context. They're going to bring that back to Tatiana coin. They're going to give that to the blockchain. And now the blockchain is self-aware of its own previous state that was published up to Bitcoin. And so in a nutshell, that's how it works. And then there's a lot of work on the game theory and incentivization models for how exactly you split the rewards amongst the POP miners and how you resolve forks if it were challenged. But basically, it comes down to your blockchain. Anyone can, in a decentralized way, timestamp your blockchain up to Bitcoin, prove that they've done so, collect a reward. And then if anyone in the future ever challenges the blockchain, they try to do a 51% attack, they try to fork it, and they propose this fork to your network can be self-aware and say, I look like this 20 minutes ago, according to Bitcoin, you're saying I look like that. And unless you can prove to me that you also timestamped to Bitcoin, then I'm going to reject your fork. And if the person did timestamp their attacking fork to Bitcoin, everyone in the world would be able to see because you're publishing that data to Bitcoin in real time. You're publishing it as you're creating that fork. And so everyone would know, hey, there's an attack pending on Tatiana coin. I, as an exchange, I, as a merchant, I, as a user, I'm just going to wait for more confirmations.
Fantastic. So every time you want to do that, you do have to pay a Bitcoin fee. Are there any ways to integrate that into the Lightning Network? But I guess not really, because you do want to settle that onto the main chain, right?
Correct. So anytime someone's doing a proof of proof transaction on behalf of a blockchain that's secured directly to Bitcoin, they are paying a Bitcoin transaction fee. That's sort of the Bitcoins become the virtual mining rigs. But that's a really good question. That's actually why we created the Veriblock blockchain, was to act as an intermediate aggregation layer, because Bitcoin's transaction fees are high and they're only going to keep getting higher as adoption increases. And so we created the Veriblock blockchain, which sits between all the other blockchains that want to use proof of proof and Bitcoin. And then they can publish their data onto Veriblock, which will have much lower transaction fees because it's not competing with all the other use cases of Bitcoin. And it also has more space designated for specific publications of proof of proof data. And then Veriblock itself is secured with proof of proof up to Bitcoin. And so it's able to combine all the collective bidding power of all these blockchains that secure themselves with Veriblock, and it's able to, on all their behalf simultaneously, bid for space in the Bitcoin blockchain.
So it's proof of proof of proof of proof. That's
exactly. Or as we call it, the PAPOW.
The PAPOW. No. The left-right PAPOW. Lovely. So Tatiana, this sounds something for you. You just got to get Tatiana coin of proof of proof.
I don't know about all that because Tatiana coin's got its own issues with the Bitcoin fees because it's on counterparty. So we're trying to like work around that stuff. But yeah,
that's actually one of the things with counterparty assets. Like you mentioned, you have these issues with Bitcoin transaction fees. When you build things on existing protocols, you're forced to endure the you're competing with all these other use cases for Bitcoin. So someone who wants to move $1 billion, users of Tatiana coin on Counterparty are bidding against that. They're trying to outbid someone moving $1 billion to move some Tatiana coin. So one of the things that we're working on at Veriblock is a way for people to move assets off of Counterparty and off of ERC20s and other things onto their own blockchain where they're in their own environment. And now that you're able to launch a secure blockchain from almost nothing, it makes a lot more sense to move a lot of these things that right now are dependent on an underlying protocol, move them off to their own chain where they're not competing with other people for space.
Did you
hear about what Andreas said at his talk, by the way?
I did not know.
So it was pretty cool. At the Chicago event, Andreas said essentially that we need like a chain to secure all the chains to Bitcoin. And it was like he had heard of Veriblock, but I don't actually think that he has. I think that it was just sort of something that he said coincidentally. So I hope that you check that out. I think the guys on Blockchain, WTF, I was scrolling through while you're talking to look it up. It's blockchain.wtf. They were talking about that, and they're gonna have Andreas's thing up there. So
awesome. I'll check that out.
Yeah, I mean, if Andreas is suggesting what you already made, I think that's really cool.
Yeah,
we actually did talk to Andreas a few years ago at a conference, really, really early in our stage of developing Veriblock before we really figured out all the nips and tucks to make it really work. But I don't know if we planted the seed back then or if the idea was too immature. But yeah, we had certainly talked with him in the very, very early days, very briefly at a conference. But yeah, that's awesome. I'll check that out for sure.
Fantastic. Yeah. So what's the next steps for you guys now?
Next steps? My mind, Josh. You read my mind.
So we already launched our test net, so anyone can go and test the software and see how it works. We have a Telegram channel if people want to join and follow the project and see its developments and stay on, every time we release an update to the software, they can be there and get the release early. And when mining starts on mainnet, they can be there to hear about it first. The next steps are we are going to launch our mainnet pretty soon. We're hoping to do it in Q2 of this year. And then after that, it's just integrating blockchains. So we see the blockchain space as having these sort of families, right? There's like, the CryptoNote family with all the Monero and Bytecoin and all those. There's obviously the Bitcoin family with Bitcoin and all of its forks and Litecoin and Purecoin. And there's these distinct families of blockchains. And so for each family, we're going to create an integration library in the language that the actual blockchain platform is in, but also for the block structure and the way that the blockchain is designed that'll allow them to integrate. And so the libraries themselves are pretty hard to build out. There's a lot of work there, but once a library is built for a family of coins, then it's really easy for a blockchain to say, oh, we want to adopt this technology. We're going to do a little bit of a hard fork. We're going to take some of our proof of work or proof of stake or whatever rewards. We're going to divert them over to proof of proof miners. We're going to use the library to integrate the proof of proof fork resolution code. And then we're going to get the community to adopt it. And then each blockchain themselves decides on what that split's going to look like, how to roll out the fork, but we'll have sort of best practices and some guides for how exactly to do that. And also Veriblock Inc. will be helping do a lot of the integrations in the early days.
Nice.
So the last thing I guess that I think Factom, something like that is also kind of similar, right? I mean, it's not really, but I can imagine it sort of tickles the similar vein of being able to.
It does a little bit. Factom uses basically a centralized, a federated solution where they say, there's this group of people who are going to timestamp a blockchain up to Bitcoin, and the revolution for proof of proof was figuring out how to get rid of that federated party, how to decentralize it so that anyone, just like Bitcoin mining, anyone can go buy an ASIC and start mining. So too, we wanted anyone to be able to buy some Bitcoin or buy some Veriblock coin, depending on where they're proof of proof mining, and do security transactions and secure a blockchain. And so the real idea behind proof of proof was that the incentivization structure for how do you pay these people, and also how do you allow anyone to join that group and participate in a permissionless manner. So that's where the two ideas diverge. But anything that does timestamp data to Bitcoin is going to have some similarity to proof of proof, because proof of proof is looking at inheriting the security of Bitcoin by publishing data to Bitcoin that we hope doesn't change. So.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Great stuff. Great work, Max.
Well, thank you. We're pretty excited about it. So.
I think this is good, guys. I feel like crypto's coming along. Things are getting secured. Things are being locked. It's all roses from here. Okay, so any final words? I think we can wrap up. Any other news, Josh, that we need to cover? Max, anything you want to tell us? You want to tell the audience?
Just if anyone
with you.
Tell you about what?
Tell the audience how they can hang out with you. Where can they see you if they want to hear
sure. So we are going to be at Consensus. We're not speaking or anything, but we do go to a lot of the conferences. And so if you see us there, we'd love to talk about the technology and everything. Also, we have a web presence. So if you visit veriblock.org, that's our community site for the blockchain project. And we also have a Telegram channel that we're really active on if anyone wants to ask questions or talk about the technology or just listen and hear about announcements for the project. So Telegram and veriblock.org are the places to go.
Excellent. Very cool. All right, Josh.
Excellent. Well, I've got an announcement. Well, it's an announcement of an announcement, which is kind of annoying. I hate when companies do that. But we're announcing something at Changes Festival, Changes Conference in Amsterdam next week. It's going to be huge, and it's going to be a world first. So it's really cool because Vaultoro has done multiple world's firsts so far, our company. So this is another world first, and it's a really big push in the crypto. I think the cryptosphere will go be a buzz with it. So I'm very excited to launch it. Unfortunately, I can't talk about it more because it is happening next week.
But a little tease. No one likes that, Josh.
I am a little teased. But keep track of my of our Twitter at Vaultoro. That's Vault as in gold vault and Oro as in gold vault Oro. At Vaultoro, and you'll keep up to date.
I should also promote something. The TatianaShow.com is up online. The TatianaShow.com. It's really not looking that great. We still got some tweaks, but it's there, and there's a whole bunch of episodes. And if y'all want to catch up with me, you can go to Queen Tatiana or Tatiana Coin. Those are my 2 Twitter handles. I'm on Facebook. If you would like to be a participant of the NSA spying program, please find me there. TatianaRose.com. And also, if you are a crypto company and you want to work at telling people about you, I've got a big mouth, and so does my company, Crypto Media Hub. So we'll help you with marketing and promotion and all sorts of good stuff. CryptoMediaHub.com. That's it. Everybody's awesome. Javi has been running the show on the back end, doing a kick-ass job. Yeah. We're back on LibSign. I don't even know what that means, but apparently SoundCloud wasn't counting our stuff correctly. So we also broadcast out over a number of different stations. So thanks to all our affiliates. And we'll see y'all next week. Peace out. Bye.
Thanks everyone.